So I regret watching this film alone because I had nobody to debrief with about it in the immediate aftermath of leaving my screening, so now I will be subjecting the internet to all of my thoughts and feelings about the drama. Okay, this is not going to be a spoiler-free discussion, so if you haven't seen the drama, I recommend saving this for later, going to watch it, and then coming back. Hopefully everyone who hasn't seen the film has now gone so that I can speak freely about this, but feel free to keep watching in case you have absolutely no plans to go and see this film, although I really encourage you to do so. But if you're really not going to change your mind, let me give you a quick synopsis of what this film is actually all about, because the advertising doesn't really give it away. So Emma and Charlie, they are mere days away from getting married. They appear to be the perfect couple. Everything is going swimmingly until they meet up with their friends, Rachel and Mike, and over wine they begin to talk about the worst things they've ever done. Now, as each person goes around, they're kind of all different varying degrees of bad, but then when it comes to Zendaya's turn, she reveals that she almost went through with doing a school incident, shall we say. I have no idea what I can and can't say on here, but you hopefully will know what I'm talking about. And then the majority of the film from there is basically Charlie freaking out and being like, oh my god, can I go through with this wedding? And he's kind of having this like internal struggle. Rachel is being the worst. Mike kind of seems like a chill guy. He's sort of like, I don't know. Now, like I say, the marketing for this film has been very interesting because it does not, under any circumstances, give away the actual plot of the film. Now, I've kind of been referring to Emma's confession as like a twist, but it's not actually a twist. It is the plot of the film. It's just a confession. It happens very early on in the movie. Like, it's not something you're like waiting for really. It just sort of happens and she kind of says it pretty casually. So maybe twist is the wrong word. I will be referring to it as Emma's confession from now on. So this movie is kind of a conversation minefield. When I left the cinema, I found myself with so many different conflicting thoughts. I couldn't figure out if I thought the movie was good, if it was bad, what I really thought about all of these different characters. I just couldn't make my mind up. My mind was a complete mess. I made very messy notes about it, but I think I've finally figured out what I think about the drama, and hopefully my thoughts will be delivered in at least a semi-orderly manner. So let's start with the subject matter. School shootings. So this is a particularly difficult subject to talk about in general, let alone in a fictionalized film context. And it is so hard to get right, but I actually think the drama does get it right, because after all, this isn't actually about a school shooting that happens. It's about one that almost happened. And I'm really hoping that as a result of it being about the idea of one rather than an actual one, that we can all have a much more productive conversation about this film with a little bit of nuance. However, we are on the internet, so I don't know how nuanced we can go, but we can certainly try over here. I can certainly understand that this movie will not be for everyone, and I also don't think the way that school shootings are discussed is going to be for everyone either. It's a dark comedy. It is full of humour and a lot of kind of cringe comedy. There was so many moments where I was literally sinking into my seat, but also laughing, but also being like, oh. However, I don't think the jokes necessarily come at the expense of any victims. I think it's very much poking fun at the phenomenon itself and also the people who do these things. However, there is one gag that comes pretty much immediately in the scene after the confession happens, where Charlie and Emma are going to kind of meet with their wedding photographer, and the wedding photographer is running through the list of like how the order of the day is going to work in terms of photographs, and she's like, so we'll shoot you first, and then Charlie will shoot you, and then I'm going to shoot grandma, and then I'm going to shoot your entire family. And unfortunately, it got me. It got me. It's a good bit. It's a good bit. Everyone in the cinema was cringing, wheezing, laughing, stifling laughs. It was a lot. One thing I will say, if you haven't been to see this, but you are open to going to see it, go to the cinema, seriously, and pick a packed screen, because everyone in my screen was so reactive. And then I messaged a friend afterwards who had been in another screening, and she also said her cinema was very reactive. It's a lot of fun, and I think it just adds to the whole experience, and it's also kind of interesting to hear which bits people are reactive to. But anyway, back to the subject matter itself. One of my favourite things that this film does is that it positions Emma and what she was going to do as just like a loser, lame thing to do. Like, it's not cool, it's just ridiculous. And I think that's great. One of my favourite scenes in this film is where Emma is trying to kind of film this sort of like manifesto video. She's like got this gun and she's just, you know, she's trying to take it really, really seriously, but then pop-ups keep coming up and like disrupting the video. And you're just like, actually, yes. This is how we need to be speaking about the people that do these kind of things. Because I think oftentimes we watch those videos and it's like, God, this is, you know, how scary. And I think there's a tendency to kind of like glorify these videos or hold them up as these kind of like super scary, intimidating things. And obviously, to an extent, it's like, yes, that is super scary, but it's also really lame. Someone had to sit down, put the camera on, think about what they were going to say. They probably scripted it. They probably got their words wrong several times. They probably had issues with pop-ups. The camera stopped recording. They ran out of storage. Like, it's ridiculous. How lame. Sat in your room doing that. I also think it's a really good thing that at no point in this film are we able to pinpoint why Emma would do something like this. The film doesn't even try to attempt to justify why she might retaliate in this way, because I think ultimately there is no justifying trying to do that, especially to children. You cannot justify school shootings. It doesn't matter how bad your life is. There is no excuse for doing that to children. And so I appreciate that this film doesn't try and justify it in any means. It just kind of like gives us some innocuous situations where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a little unfortunate that you went through that. That's a bit sad. I would feel bad for you, but by no means necessary would I then jump to the conclusion of, oh, I'm going to end the lives of my classmates after getting pushed into a puddle, you know? But I think the most fascinating thing about this film is the way that each of the characters around Emma react to her confession, because everyone reacts in a pretty different way. And I think that's because each of the characters have varying degrees of interactions and experiences with school shootings. Like, having Charlie be a British character is so interesting because I think it makes the sort of moral issue of it a bit more grey for him, because he has no personal trauma relating to this kind of thing. Like, his cultural context is completely different to Rachel's. He did not grow up going to school afraid of what might happen when he walks into his classroom. He didn't grow up having to do drills and what to do in an active shooter situation. He was just able to go to school and not think about that. He is obviously aware that these are things that happen, but he has never been like, oh yeah, this is a viable thing that might actually happen to me. So he's like, okay, I can have a reaction to this, but it's nowhere near my reality. Whereas someone like Rachel, I think she kind of responds in such a visceral and angry and intense way, probably because this is something that is way closer to her. Like, obviously she kind of talks about her cousin being in a wheelchair because of an incident like this. However, it's still strangely hard to kind of empathise with her properly, and I was desperately trying to empathise with Rachel quite a lot, because I'm like, okay, I do understand. Yes, you have this associated trauma with this subject matter, and that was a scary reality for you that could have happened when you were younger. However, Alana Haim, how did you do this? Because I was like, I don't want to interact with Rachel. I'm so deeply irritated by Rachel. So yeah, shout out to you, Alana Haim. I don't know how you did that. It's made me afraid of you as a person. So obviously that is a joke, Alana Haim. I've got plenty of time for you. I actually think the whole cast is amazing, to be honest. I think Robert Pattinson is so well suited to this role, and what a pleasure to see two of the most beautiful people in Hollywood act on screen together. I mean, what a joy. I can't wait for the Odyssey. I can't wait for Dune Part 3. We're so lucky. As a society, we're so lucky to have these people in our lives and on our screens. But anyway, I felt like their chemistry was incredible, and I appreciate that at no point during the press tour did they have to pretend that they were in love for us as an audience to kind of be sold on their chemistry. No, they're just great actors who can nail that on-screen chemistry together. And Zendaya is also just amazing. I love seeing her in dramatic roles. I think she's such a brilliant dramatic actress, honestly. And it's amazing because she's fashionable, she's beautiful, she can model, she can act, she can sing, she can dance. Shake it up. However, something I have been stuck on with Zendaya being cast in this role, I have no idea whether her being a black woman was kind of like taken into account when they were casting for this. I don't know if it was a case of like, oh my god, we got Zendaya, let's have her, great, okay, yay. Or if like there was a real thought into how that would kind of affect the audience's perception of her. I mean, I have to kind of assume maybe she wasn't always written as like a black female character in this, because I don't know that the story necessarily like interrogates that much. But I have been interrogating it, and I have been thinking about how I have processed this film as a result of Zendaya being the person who planned the school shooting. Because I can't help but think I would process this film completely differently if she was a white male. I really think I would. I don't know that I would have as nuanced and complex a feeling about her and what she did if she was a white male. And I think that's because obviously the archetype of a school shooter is a white male. And so naturally, I also as well just perceive men in general as a bit more of a threat as a woman. But I think if this character was, this archetype of the white male, I think this would feel a bit more like just open and shut, like it's a closed case, you know, Charlie, get out of there, run away. I'm scared. But because she's a woman, I think a woman in particular, I don't feel as much of a threat, and I think I felt more empathy towards her as well, kind of black woman to black woman. I don't know, I thought that was so interesting, and I do wish that the story had kind of like taken a little bit more time to be like, okay, how is this story different because of who Emma is? I also think if Emma had been like a white male character, I probably would have disliked Rachel less, because I think I also would just be like, oh no, get away, cut. Like, isn't that interesting? I don't know if anyone else kind of thought about that and felt that way, but I am definitely always looking at every film through a sort of like sociological lens. But like I said, this movie is an hour and 45 minutes. There was only so much that we were going to get through. And I think initially I found that frustrating. Like, I wasn't sure if I liked this film because of its runtime. It's able to ask a lot of questions in that runtime, but it can't answer them. But then, having thought about it, I much preferred that this film doesn't really come to any conclusions for you. It's asking the questions so that you can go away and discuss them and think about them for yourself. And ultimately it feels as though this isn't necessarily a film about school shootings. I think it's a film about love and whether your love is conditional or unconditional, and if you believe that you have unconditional love for someone, what are the boundaries of that? Are there any boundaries to that? I think the school shooting element is just kind of an interesting lens to look at that question through. And I think it's especially interesting, this story, because it's like, this could really happen to any of us. And I hope it doesn't happen to me. But it could happen to any of us, because the majority of people end up being with partners who they have not known their entire lives. Do you ever truly know someone, and can you forgive them for terrible, terrible things if you find out those things? Like, if you met who you thought was your perfect person and you had every intention of spending your entire life with them, but then you find out one thing about them that you do not like or freaks you out or scares you, do you stay or do you run away? No, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what I would do if I was in Charlie's position at all. It's just such an engaging subject to make a film about, and I have to say, I really appreciate the final scene in this. I think it might be what really pulled the film together for me, when they're sat in that diner and they just start over again, because I feel like realistically that probably is life. That probably is it. I think most people wouldn't throw everything away when they find out that someone almost did something, that they thought about doing something. But yeah, I don't know. I also think, on top of the drama's very interesting kind of conversation that it's having with the audience, it's also just top tier filmmaking. I really liked the writing. I found it very thought-provoking. I thought the film looks beautiful. The cinematography, the lighting, the sets. Where is that apartment? Where is it? Where is it? How much is it? Is it up for sale? Can I live there? Please, incredible. Blown away, truly. I can't. Again, the cast was fantastic. The music, beautiful. I honestly, when I first left the cinema after the drama, I'm gonna be honest, I was like, I think this is like a 3.5 star film. But having really processed it, I think I've bumped it up a whole star, and it's a 4.5 star film for me. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts and feelings on the drama. What did you think? Have you seen it? What's your conclusion? What's your rating? How do you feel? Let me know in the comments. I will see you in the next video. Make sure you subscribe with the notifications on, and yeah, thank you for listening and watching.